All right, so we are back and we are in the last segment. I'm so sad because I don't want Mary Elizabeth to leave. But we just had a conversation about some things she's going to hold me accountable to. So I know this is our last time talking. But I always like to take this part of the podcast or this segment to say, it's important to pay it forward because we are alums. We're in the alumni impact room. That's why we call it alumni on air. It's in the TFA office in Crosstown. And it's important if you're in this room, you just can't, you have to sit here and think about all the names on the wall represent every core member that has come through for a long, since, well, there's some, we don't have our 2006 core members on here, but we have people on here who might have been done a 2006 core and beyond. And so I think it's important to think about that impact of like where you're going, but also going back in time. And so for this moment, I would like for you to just say, what advice would you give to core members? So core members, listen up. Incoming core members, listen up. This is a moment for you to really hear what's some advice or things she would be thinking about for you to be doing as you prepare to either embark on the journey of being a TFA teacher in Memphis and or just in TFA, or if you're already in the core and you're finishing up your first year or second year. This is some advice that Mary Elizabeth has.
Feels like the pressure's on. My brain goes to two different places when I think about the advice. The first one is, you always hear that saying of, like it doesn't, people don't remember like what you said or what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. And y'all have heard me say more than a few times that I was not the all-star teacher of the year. Like I was not where I thrived. But my kids knew that I worked really hard at the relationships I built with my kids, and I am confident that y'all have heard that, and you will hear that at our institute or pre-service, and you'll hear that 100 times more. But I would just encourage you that it's not just with your students; it's with their families, it's with their parents. And I think about, there was one parent who she could never make it in because she was working so many jobs, and so we would like Instagram chat back and forth on my teacher Instagram. And she was so gracious to meet me in that place and to, accept my phone calls when I would call. But it was so important to me to meet her where she was because she wanted to be so involved, but her schedules, we didn't line up in the same way. And so I would just say never underestimate the value of the relationships that you have with your kids, because heaven knows my kids could have acted, they could have done, all sorts of things. They, like we said earlier, like how do you care about love signs or cosigns when, you've got your kids or, your siblings to take care of at home or, whatever it is that's happening outside. But they tried so hard because of the relationships that we had and because they trusted me. And that is something I will never take lightly, and it's a privilege that I sure didn't deserve, and I don't deserve to this day. But I just think, we don't have to be the best. We just have to show up and with love and with care. And so I think that would be my first one, is just never underestimate the power of relationship. And my second one would be to give yourself grace. Kind of in the same line, there's that moment where it's like, do I spend one more hour on this lesson plan, or like, do I go get some sleep? And I'll tell you, always go get some sleep. because just by virtue of being a core member, I am confident that you are an incredibly competent, wonderful, driven, talented human being. And so I'm confident the work that you've done is great. And we're not going to be perfect. We don't know what we're doing. Especially your first year. I think back to that moment was like, well, it's just us, and I am the adult in the room. So here we go. But to give yourself grace, because you have an amazing community in TFA. You have an amazing community in your fellow core members who could say, like, you're not alone, we're going to figure this out. And so just to give yourself the grace that it might not be perfect, but it's going to be good. And that kind of leads me maybe to my 2B. 2B, okay. Yeah, we're just going to spice it up a little bit. Whoa. Is, kids can tell, like, they're the most perceptive, whether that's sophomore, junior, seniors, or like kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And so I think there's always a way to be like honest with your kids. And this is my counselor brain coming out. But, you know, in showing them or telling them like, hey, this is hard, or like, hey, this is going on in the world and we don't have answers, but we're going to talk about it. By you being the adult in the room and broaching those things first, you're showing them what a safe place you are to come with their questions, and with their confusion, with their fears, but also with their joys and their wins. And so I'm excited for you, core members. It's the most wonderful, challenging experience, and you're not in it alone.
I love all of that. That was just, chef's kiss. I think, and I really hope y'all take heed of that, and I hope you're seeing a theme and pattern across our series at this point, that the relationship is really important. We keep hearing that. Now let's talk about you. So if you could go back in time, because I think this is for the alums, and it can be for anybody listening, actually. Like, it's always a powerful moment to stop and reflect of, like, what would you tell yourself? Because I think it's important. It kind of can also give you the compass guide to do now, because you can't go back in time, but at least you can reflect and then use it as a point, driving point to what you might do as you move forward. So if you go back in time, what would you tell yourself? You could tell us the time period. It could be is prior to alumnihood. You could choose, you could choose any time period. But what would you tell yourself?
Oh man. Okay, my brain also goes to two places.
Okay.
Like, I'm a nerd. Like, I knew that I wanted to do public education probably since the moment I was 15 or 16 years old.
Okay.
So I read like every book out there. I read every study. I read everything. I did my education minor, my math minor. There is nothing like standing in front of a classroom with kids. It just doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And so, and maybe this is like retrospect, is just to know that like we can read all the books in the world, but like there's just nothing like being in a classroom. And so that experience is new and different. And so maybe also to myself, to give myself some grace of like, you don't know what you're doing.
You don't.
I also think about, which like in the moment you kind of know, but looking back, you're like, what? The incredible community that you're never in alone. And that is so special. And I mean, that's so special and something so unique to TFA.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, I think about, I just told them a story in the break of a student who didn't want to take a math test, so they popped open a pen and never broke eye contact as they spread the blue ink all over the place. And this student ended up, we really had a great relationship. And I think about that moment though, I was like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, I'm out of my league. I want to protect this relationship, and man, this is probably not cool. And I remember I called my coach and I was like, Amanda, I need some help. And we laughed about it. Gosh, I probably cried to her. But she was always that source of support, and someone from the outside saying like, hey, no, try this, do this, think about it from this way. So you're never in it alone. And then, I mean, I just had a third thought, and now it's gone.
It's coming back.
It's coming back. It's coming back. It was not alone. Oh, there you go. That's your vibes. Thank you. It's knowing your why. And I know that Teach for America, or at least when I was in, pre-service, we talk about that 9 million times. And I think we can talk about it a lot, but then when you're in the moment and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. We've got 3 different preps or like whatever it is. And so I just think about when I look back at the moments that were the hardest, it was almost like kids just knew, and like a kid would pop in and be like, would have a really cool conversation, or I would think back to, or someone would remind me of Memphis and what I grew up with, and hey, like, why did you get into this work in the first place? And it's not always going to be perfect, and it's sure not always going to be easy, but I go back to the thought of like, it's always good. And if we, have all these resources in the world, what a privilege it is to like step into a place, to build a stage for these kids to say, hey, like, I can do this. I can boost my SAT score by this amount of points. I can beat this school, and we have been blessed to be blessings. And so when I think about just the experience that we've had, that when we know our why, when we know how much we've been given, then man, it makes the difficult moments seem like just such a blip in retrospect, because the good far outweighed the good, and the moments of breakthrough were far weightier than any moment of difficulty.
I love that. That was just, again, chef's kiss. I think that was just profound. We are blessed to be a blessing to someone else. And even when you think, you know, you don't, like, I have nothing. You know, I remember one time I was homeless as a kid, and it's like, I have nothing. But I had, I did have something. You know, I had my mom, I had my sister in that experience with me. And to be honest, it's been a trio ever since. And so you don't think of it that way sometimes, and I don't remember Jamisha as a kid what I thought fully, but I do know that I thought school was a safe space, and I was glad that, you know, I was in a school at the time that perceived and showed up to be a safe space. And again, I can just think about all the different blessings in that moment, and I can say that it's important to know, even now, even though adulting is hard. I don't know why I was rushing to become somebody, whatever I am. Like, oh my gosh. James gonna tell me to wrap it up, because I will go off about this adulting life. So sometimes I don't feel blessed, but that moment touched me, because I am blessed, even in all this chaos and foolishness of adulthood. I am, and life in me. I am blessed, and so I can be a blessing to someone else. I appreciate that. With this last bit of time, I want you to take this chance and opportunity to, you know, call us into a cause or something that you want us to be thinking about. I think the power of the movement, you all can't see this sign, this wall back here, but the orange wall is called Building the Movement. And so how do you build a movement? You got to share it with people. There's movement happening. And so what's your movement? What's something that you want us to be thinking about or getting in charge behind? Because this is going to come out in December. So for the month of December, what do you want us to be thinking about?
A lot. So I think about how, like, building that stage and how we all have a part to play. So obviously my part's going to be about mental health, and I hit it from two different perspectives. And one, I've talked about from a few different moments of how impossible would it be for our students to learn if they're facing XYZ. And so I think about when we come to our kids, which I know we're talking about with TFA, is that trauma-informed approach. Then we know the importance of relationships. We know the importance of, like, both and like restorative justice and restorative discipline, and just like remembering our kids' point of view when they come into our classroom. And just always having that in the back of our minds is something that I'll champion for always. And I think something that doesn't always get as much attention is championing, it's hard for me to say, championing the mental health of our teachers. Because I think about us walking down the hallway as a teacher thinking, like, nobody talks to you about this stuff. Like, I've heard X, Y, and Z in the last hour. I've had to make 3 phone calls to this government agency, and, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I think about if that was happening for myself in 2016, and that was something of like, hey, when I get out, like, I really want to champion the mental health of teachers and give teachers a place to process what they're experiencing, what they're hearing, and what they're being called to do. And then I think about all the things that have changed in this world since I have, you know, finished my time in the Corps. My gosh, like, teachers are asked to do about 9 million different things on not that large of a salary, with not a lot of support from the system. And so the thing I think that's top of mind for me is, man, like, how can we instill dignity in our teachers, tell them how thankful we are for them, and then how can we use what we've been given, because it makes me think about what you said earlier, is that, you know, how I even see, like, the struggles that we've gone through, like, then to look at someone else and be like, hey, I've been there, and I can tell you that you're not alone in that. That's so powerful. And so if you're an alumni, how can you get involved with teachers now and say, like, hey, I've been there where you are, let's talk about it, what's hard, what's good, how can I support you? You know, I think in every aspect, whether you're in business or some sort of service, or, I mean, still in the work directly or outside of it supporting, and we all have a role to play. And so our teachers are on the front lines, and they're the ones who are day in and day out serving our kids. How can we boost them up to be able to do the amazing work that they're doing and to be, you know, the day-to-day, you're in it, and how to do those things. So I think that's top of mind.
I love those 2 call-ins. It's like the mental health of our kids and like showing up with them and seeing them as humans and taking their perspectives 100% and all the different strategies to do that. And then that second strategy of the mental health of our teachers. Oh my gosh, like I think you're 100% right. It was so, I love as you were talking, I kind of zoned out for a second thinking back on my experience. So like there were so many things and experiences that I had and that I saw that, you know, there was nobody to talk to. I go to therapy now, of course, but back then I was not thinking about therapy as a teacher. I was like, I gotta go here and I got lesson plans and I got, you know, like, but when you, especially during December, because I remember getting up, it was dark outside when I got to work and it's dark outside when I'm coming home. And it's just, it feels, you're just rushing towards that break. And as much as I love our little babies, I love them, all ages. It's something about that break time that everybody just gets a little anxious, okay? Everybody gets a little testy, okay? And you just get to a point where it's like, okay, we all need a break. We all need space. And so while we are blessed to have those breaks in education, which I think that might be why that probably is the real reason of why we put them in the breaks in, but I think it's a beautiful thing that we have breaks, but I think we need to actually make sure we're taking a break every day through checking in our mental health. That's so important.
Because we talk about self-care and it's like, ooh, with cucumbers on the eyes, and have a nice walk outside, and like that's great for some people, but it sure doesn't work for others.
Nope.
And so figuring out like what does it look like what is taking away your energy, what's filling you up, and then how can you do that in a way that's not like, all right, my to-do list is already 9,000 things long. Let me add my daily walk and podcast.
Oh my goodness!
Catch up with a friend. So just figuring out what that looks like for you and helping teachers have the space and the capacity to do that.
Love it. Well, I am so sad that our time is coming to an end on here, but she will be holding me accountable with some other things, and you will also see Mary Elizabeth on our Young Advisory Board, and that is different from our alumni board. So the Young Advisory Board, if you want to know more about that, reach out to Monique Newsom. She will be able to give you more information. But thus for our alums who are not about alums, it's for young professionals out in the field who are doing different things. So if you know somebody or see somebody that's really doing a great job, whether it be a doctor, a lawyer, dentist, whatever, you can definitely reach out to either James and myself, and we can get to Monique to talk about bringing other people into, just like Mary Liz talked about, bringing other people into the work and into the mindset of supporting teachers and supporting the growth of our kids. And if you want to be a part of specifically alumni initiatives, you can join our alumni advisory board, which is only alumni in that space. And that is a space for us to really think about alumni programming, alumni initiatives, and how to really make sure that as we think about this idea, we're not in 2015, 2016 anymore, but how do we support 2023, 2022 and beyond as they come into the fold and we start to build this movement some more with a new generation coming and joining us in the work. Again, if you have any questions, you always reach out to James and myself, and I can't wait to see y'all in the next episode. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me.